Other day, I read that the pharmaceutical industry is going to exceed $1.5 trillion in 2023. Just thinking about that number, you can imagine what manufacturing companies are going through. They are having that challenge with supply chain. Today, my guest is going to shed light on what's going to help these manufacturing companies get the supplies they need into their facilities so that they can meet this demand. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and you are listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast, where I go around the world talking with business owners and thought leaders about their industry, about their businesses, what type of marketing is working, what type of marketing's not, and how we can all succeed into the future. Today, my guest is Adam Kovic. He is the president of Federal Equipment Company. Good morning, Adam. How are you today?
Hey, Donna, great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to learning so much from you this morning because I think I might have had a little bit of a misconception of what your company does. And so my first question for you is what I mentioned earlier. The pharmaceutical space is growing at warp speed, and manufacturing companies are having a hard time keeping up with the demand. How can your company help manufacturers with this?
It's funny you bring up warp speed because, with the pandemic and everything that occurred, the supply chains were affected in a couple ways. One, obviously, customers, patients in the U.S. being able to get drugs and slow deliveries of their drugs from overseas. Okay. So I think a lot of our clients in the U.S. second guessed their manufacturing capabilities and having to ship product and raw materials across to China, India, you name it, and then bring products back. So that was one thing. The other thing is a lot of our clients who are global manufacturers and contract manufacturers of pharmaceuticals need new machinery.
Yes.
And lead times and delivery times from the original equipment manufacturers, machines in Italy and in Germany, were just frankly delayed. We're hearing, especially on the sterile injectable side, so vials and syringes, the machinery for that type of manufacturing could be 18 to 36-month deliveries from the manufacturers. So obviously, with the need and demand for vaccines and injectables, the long lead times have grossly slowed down the delivery of the drugs to the patients.
Yeah, I can't believe there's such a lag time for those items.
Well, when you think about, first of all, one of the major things that happened in the U.S. was Benvenue closed. And Benvenue, which was a Boehringer Ingelheim company, was one of the major freeze drying and injectable sites in the U.S. It shut down. They transferred, the products were transferred overseas, and they had one of the largest freeze drying capabilities, lyo capabilities in the U.S. That shut down and caused a huge void. Yeah. And there were some new CMOs and manufacturers gearing up. One of them that timed things perfectly was a company called Grand River up in Michigan, and they just built a brand new injectable site, and it was right prior to the pandemic. Well, the pandemic hit, and they had manufacturing space, so it was really good timing for them. But a lot of companies didn't predict what was going to happen. A lot of the products are being made overseas, and many of the manufacturers weren't geared up for the need for sterile manufacturing. And that's why really what we're seeing as a trend, and what we've seen over the last 2 years, is the demand for things like tablets and capsules haven't been as prevalent in the U.S. It was definitely focused on syringes and vials and sterile manufacturing, and biotech is what really has been basically most of our calls, most of our customers interested in that type of equipment in the U.S. right now.
Because companies realize we better be ready in case this ever happens again, that everything's being manufactured here in the States.
Right, and API, activated pharmaceutical
Yeah,
ingredients. So ingredients that go into drugs, which the majority now are made overseas. A lot of our, the major clients here decided, wow, we've got to gear back up here in the US. So they're building sites, and that was part of Project Warp Speed and reshoring drugs back into the US.
yeah. Which is great for manufacturing as a whole here in the United States to bring it back here to the United States and get more of our people working and producing it here.
I would say over the last 2 years, we sell pharmaceutical machinery both on the API, sterile, and the solid dose side. We've been the busiest we've ever been over the last 2 years.
That's great.
It's just hard for us, getting equipment, is buying the equipment that we go out and look for. A lot of manufacturers are holding on to equipment longer, because they're not sure what they're going to need.
Well, they probably also don't know how fast they're going to be able to get the newer model into their
Absolutely.
facility, so they hold on to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or they may upgrade using companies' control upgrades, stuff like that, and keep what they have because they're not sure they can get new machinery in time to meet demand.
So let me ask you this question. Does a manufacturer ever get that new piece of equipment in, but still hold on to the old piece just in case the new one doesn't work out?
So there's a lot of manufacturers that'll take machinery in on trade. So they deliver a machine to a customer. They'll take the older version of their
Okay.
machine back. They'll refurbish it, sell it to a contract manufacturer, generic, someone, not your tier one pharma like a Pfizer,
Right.
GSK. But yeah, I mean, there's been many times where we as a stocking dealer of pharmaceutical equipment have sold machinery back to the original manufacturers because they saw a need for tablet presses, capsule fillers, whatnot. They would buy their machine back, retro and upgrade it with new controls, and basically sell a factory refurb machine. So that happened quite a bit too. So
Well,
it's, and I'll tell you another thing is major manufacturers in the past that would never consider used machinery have had directives through their facilities to look for machinery, new used machinery as a first option because they can't buy and they can't wait for the machines to be manufactured.
and there also has to be a certain quality. There has to be certain manufacturers or certain piece of equipment, that there's such a high quality that even though they are used, they want to have it.
Absolutely. There's some name brands in the pharmaceutical space, especially the OSD tablets and capsules. Manufacturers Fetty, Korsch, Glad, EMA. You have these manufacturers that just make very good, robust machines that manufacturers want. And when you think about other manufacturers, maybe machines coming from India or China, they could be copies in effect of those long-standing brands. Okay, and when you have copied machines, they don't necessarily keep spare parts. They
Okay.
don't have service techs in the U.S. They may not have done all the necessary testing and have labs to try products on these machines. And so if a manufacturer does buy a lower tier machine, they could be hit with all kinds of problems. Okay. And there's really not the support and service that the major brand manufacturers will give to these customers. So it's something to think about. And why we focus on buying machinery from those major manufacturers, those well-known long-standing businesses in the OSD space.
So now you're talking about these copiers. If I'm going out there, how would I know if something's a copy or not?
Well, I mean, if you're in the industry and you understand the machinery and you go to the trade shows and you know who the major manufacturers are, uh, also the sites like to stay with the same brands. If they buy a
Mhm.
certain brand tablet press, they like to stay with those brands. But there's companies that will go out and they can buy a machine much cheaper and get it faster and think that it's gonna perform the same and it's gonna
Yeah.
last the same. And it just all comes with experience and knowledge and dealing with reputable people in the industry, both on the OEM side and the aftermarket side. Companies who buy and sell used equipment. There's a lot of good companies out there like us, and we have 80 years of experience in buying these machines, and we know which machines have the best reputation in the marketplace.
Well, plus I think also going with a company like yours, if you're going to buy a used piece of equipment, you want to make sure, even if it is that brand or manufactured by the company, it's still in good working order. It's
There,
still a
there,
piece of equipment you'll have for years and it'll help you produce at the rate you need.
there's a lot of things you want to think about when you're buying a used piece of machinery. Quality, condition,
Yes,
where it came from, who was the manufacturer, was that was currently using that machine,
right.
was it a company that maintained and cared for the machine and inspected it and fixed problems, kept the controls updated. The other thing is, what was the previous use? Was it a machine that was used in a contaminated process like a penicillin or cephalosporin or live spore antibiotic, a cytotoxin that another manufacturer might not necessarily want traces of any product in that machine? They want to know it has a clean bill of health. Okay. How is the machine removed? Was it
Yeah.
taken out properly? Were the controls, taken out properly? Were the wires disconnected, not cut? How was the
Mhm.
machine stored? Was it stored in a good environment, or was it stored in the back of a building in an old sea container and exposed all the elements?
Yes.
These
Yeah.
are things you have to consider. And our company, we store our machinery, our pharmaceutical machinery in a climate controlled building, polished floors. We will power up machines, we'll run machines. We
Oh,
work with the original equipment manufacturers. Well, they'll come in and inspect the machinery for the customer and tell them, this machine is got a clean bill of health. These are what we would recommend. These are the things we would recommend to upgrade this machine or do preventative maintenance on the machine to make sure when you get it at your facility, you have a good running machine and you're not buying someone else's problem.
right. That's it. You don't want to get the machine all the way into your facility and then all of a sudden 3 months later it breaks down and you're back where you're worse off than where you were.
Right, right. So there's all kinds of factors you want to think about when you're buying a used machine. And one of the things we do at Federal Equipment is try to lower the risk factor. Now you're always going to have issues. There may be something that we missed or the manufacturer missed, or just regular wear and tear on a machine could occur.
Right.
And one of the things that make us a little different is we really try to make it right. We work with the OEMs to procure the right parts, to fix things, to have them fix things, or we do offer our customers a right of return. If they buy a machine and after a certain period of time there's a problem, we will take the machine back.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
that's
wonderful.
something different that a lot of used equipment guys like us won't offer.
Yeah, well, that just reinforces that you really stand behind the equipment that you're selling, is if you're willing to take it back if they run into a problem, because
We
you're
don't we
being
don't want
due
to sell
diligent.
one machine. We don't want to sell one machine to a client. We want to keep coming back. We have long-term clients that have bought
Mhm.
many, many machines. I want to outfit entire facilities.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell one machine.
Yeah. I'm laughing because in my line of work, of course, we're in marketing, but same thing. I just don't want one order from you. I want to build a relationship with you
Absolutely.
that lasts for years. And right now, that's what companies have to be concentrating on, because if you want to grow into the future, it's keeping those relationships, deepening them so that they just expand and you get more and more business from them, but you're really helping each other out in a collaborative way.
I have clients and CMOs that I've been with for 20 years.
Yeah.
Year plus, and that's the kind of relationship I want. And they call me when they need something. If I know of something coming up that maybe is not even advertised yet, not even on our site, and I could sell something right from another facility to their facility, that's many times the best scenario, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You want to have trust, especially nowadays, because there's people out there selling, you must know, there's tons of sites out there selling used equipment. You know, there's people who are doing it independently, people who are going to big, huge, large platforms and they're posting up their equipment. But it's nice if you can get with a company that you can trust, like Federal Equipment Company, and also because you show them that it's working. You know, you'll bring them in, show them the piece of equipment in motion and that it's working. It just gives people, it reinforces that this is the right decision for them to make.
It reminds me of a cartoon. One of my partners in our business, Larry Cadis, who's been with the company many years and owned the business, had a cartoon on his wall that I always thought about. And it was basically two dogs sitting in front of a computer, and the one dog looks at the other dog and says, "You know what the great thing about the internet is? Nobody else needs to know you're a dog." And that's, there's so many companies that can have this appearance of being a large brick and mortar company, a reputable company, and they can make themselves look any way they want on the internet. But is that a company like ours that has 1.4 million square foot under roof of machinery with 25,000 machines and have been in business for 80 plus years and sold thousands and thousands of machines around the world? I think that's kind of our secret sauce.
That is your secret sauce. That's your marketing message right out there, is to get
Yeah.
out all that uniqueness about your company, about Federal Equipment Company, because like us, we're a B2B marketing company. There's tons of those out there right now. You know, kids are
Right.
coming out of college calling themselves B2B marketing experts.
Right.
But have you been in existence for 42 years?
Right.
Have you been working in these specific industrial spaces for this long? And it's just showing that knowledge and experience. And when people start to see that, then they begin to trust you. And that's when those relationships will form that'll last. They'll last our lifetime.
100%.
We have relationships with vendors all over the world, and some of them, they're over 30 years old at this point.
Right.
And they're not stopping. So yeah, interesting. So from your perspective and your business, what do you see as the pros and cons of buying used equipment? What should people be watching out for?
Well, once again, what was the previous use of the machinery? How is it cared for? Are we talking major brand machinery? Are we talking, copies? Are we talking lower tier machines that may have issues? Okay. How is the maintenance program? Is the place overall clean? Is it a good GMP facility? Is it coming from the back of a barn making some sort of product? So those are factors, but pros, speed to market. So especially with contract manufacturers, if I get a call from a contract manufacturer and they need a roller compactor, they need a tablet press in order to secure a count, they need something on their floor right away, we can do that if we have a good machine in our facility. Price, obviously if a good used machine is 1/3 of the cost of new, and they can pass that savings on if they're a contract manufacturer to their client, that's a benefit.
Yes.
You know, you could have products that need to be run on the same machine. For GMP processes, you need to run a machine exactly on how that machine was originally how that product was developed. So, is that machine still available in the marketplace? Maybe not. Are parts readily available? Are you dealing with an obsolete machine that you can't get parts for anymore?
Right.
Are controls updated or updatable? Can the manufacturer upgrade controls to make sure you're compliant? There's a myriad of pros and cons, but I think dealing with a good, reputable used equipment dealer who you could trust, buying machinery from major manufacturers and knowing that the major manufacturer is going to support the purchase of that used machine. And a lot of the major OEMs that we work with, they want to support their used equipment, because if we sell a used machine to a manufacturer, the OEM now has training, service, parts, scale up. If we sell a pilot sized machine and they want to scale up, they're gonna buy a machine. And they'd also, the OEMs also look at it as they'd rather see their used machine on the floor than the machine of one of their competitors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over the years, I've worked with a lot of the OEMs and really built the trust factor there, and knowing that, we're a competitor, but we're also in a lot of ways a partner, and we're going to offer them an entree to customers that may not have been able to afford to buy their new machine, and now they have a customer and have their machine at their facility and see how they operate,
Yeah.
see how they service,
Yeah.
and take care of these machines and help the customers. And hopefully, if this company grows and now can afford to buy a new machine, they'll want to stick to that manufacturer. So that's really some of the pros and cons of looking at a used machine from a reputable used machinery dealer.
So there's two things that come to mind. The first thing is, I agree with you, get those old pieces of equipment into your facility, but if it lasts, it ends up being your workhorse, and then something happens and you need another piece of equipment, you want to go back to that manufacturer.
100%.
So it's like having that car of yours. Mine was a Honda that I drove into the ground and I had it. But what do I look at when I go to look at new cars? I always go back to the Hondas because it was a workhorse for me.
Right.
And so I think about that. And then the other question I was thinking about when you were talking about this is that crossover to different industries. Can certain pieces of your equipment, we were talking about the pharmaceutical space, but can they go to other industries and be used there?
There's certain things like mixed tanks, blenders, powder blenders, V blenders, twin shell blenders, mills like Fitz mills. There is crossover where a good high quality pharmaceutical machine like a Fitz mill in a powder process can then be used in a chemical company or some other industry, but it really doesn't work the other way. Like a Fitz mill that was used in a chemical application is really not going to go back to pharma.
Thank goodness.
So, yeah. So, but yeah, we do have some food companies that call us and buy mills or blenders or tanks, stuff like that. There is crossover, but it really is a one direction kind of crossover. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. And then when you're talking about, it seems like federal equipment, you really go back and you do all the research and the due diligence in checking everything out on that used piece of equipment before it gets promoted out or marketed out.
Right. That's correct.
You've done the legwork.
We have inventory specialists. When we sell fluid bed, we understand that it's got the air handling, what level of controls it has, what certain attachment it may have. Is it a granulator? Is it for coating? Is it for making pellets? We do all the research. We add that to our descriptions. Some of the things that we do differently is we make sure we have manuals and drawings for machines, previous use, what was the previous product. We also have a cleaning company called EcoSense that we use that will come in and clean machinery and give certificates that'll help our customers get these machines past their QC department, because they want a pedigree. Right. Where was it? What was it used for? What were the previous products? So we do all those value add things to help our customers in the future. And then we also make sure, when we buy machinery, it's from a long time of buying like machines. So we try to buy machines that we know are good quality machines that will be used in the marketplace, that our customers will want. And we have valuations. We know what we've sold previous machines for in the past. We know what the market need for those machines are. And these are all things that we consider before we buy a machine and before we start advertising.
Yeah. Your reputation is at stake here. When you're recommending a piece of equipment or you're bringing it in and you're refurbishing it and getting it ready to sell it again, it's Federal's name that is on the line.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't
Absolutely.
be here all these years if you were doing it dishonestly and you're just doing that one-off sale and see you later. You know?
Yeah, our reputation is everything to us, and
Yeah.
we want, like we said, continued business from our longstanding client. We want tier one clients. We want to keep them forever.
And I also, when I was at the last Interfex show, I think I was speaking with Jesus, I
Hmm.
believe, from your company, and he was telling me that Federal also offers training on the equipment. So it's not as if a company just buys the piece of equipment and then they're like, well, wait a minute, how do we get this up to speed? Is
Right.
that
So
correct?
yeah, so Jesus Lopez runs our training center. It's called Pharmaceuticals, and it's basically a small pilot training center. And through our relationship with a lot of the original equipment manufacturers, we have new machinery in there, and it's set up as a classroom, but a hands-on classroom where people can come in, learn about process. It's really focused on the OSD, oral solid dose process, so tablets and capsules. So they'll come in and understand all the steps needed to make a good tablet or make a good capsule, how to care for tablet presses, how to troubleshoot. What happens if you have black spots in your tablet or you have a tablet that isn't holding together? How do you properly blend, granulate? And then what we do is we bring in guest speakers from the original equipment manufacturers, and they make presentations on their machinery. Now, in the lab, it is only process. There's no salesmanship that goes on. And that's an agreement we have because we have different machines from different competing manufacturers.
Right.
So it's talk about your machine and what makes your machine great, not what makes it better than other people's. And then when they get in our lunchroom, that's more set up as a sales atmosphere where there's brochures from all the manufacturers, business cards.
Yeah.
And if one of our students from around the world wants to engage and talk to one of these people and say, hey, I'm interested in that fluid bed or tablet press, they can do that. But we ask for no salesmanship. It's only talking about technology and process in that lab. And we've got support from major manufacturers. We train beginners, people new to the industry. We managers, virtual pharma companies that may be inspecting a contract manufacturer and have no idea about the manufacturing process. So it's really a high level. And there's different classes. There's advanced tableting classes. We do a lot of classes in partnership with Natoli, which is the worldwide leader in tooling for tablet presses, and Bob Sedlock, who's their chief technology person, comes in and makes presentations, and he's really awesome, and gets into a real deep level on making a good solid tablet. So those are the things we do, and we have customers, if they buy a tablet press from us, it's their first time entering that market. They can come send people in to train and learn how to care for and make good tablets on those machines.
That is such a great value added service that Federal Equipment Company has.
Absolutely.
Because that, talk about reinforcing the trust that you're willing to bring these people in to educate, not to sell, to educate so that they can take the piece of equipment and use it to its full capacity. But then there's just that trust that they've got someone to ask. Nothing's worse than getting something new and you can't figure out how to use it, or you run into a problem. And here you're offering this service, which I think is amazing.
It's been a great asset to us, and Jesus is terrific. Has been in the industry for 40 years. Worked for major manufacturers as a formulator, so he can go in
He
and really
actually
help people.
knows, yeah, he actually knows the nitty gritty of it all and can explain it to them, which is nice.
He's also an expert on IQ, OQ documentation. So that's a whole nother thing that we've been able to offer to our customers is if they buy a used machine and need help doing IQ, OQ for their facility, he can help with that and produce those documents for them on a used piece of equipment. So that's a new entree to what Jesus is doing, and something totally different than we've ever been able to offer in the past.
Okay, very interesting. With all this, then, how are you supporting auction companies?
Great. Well, auctioneers are generalists. They'll run auctions on all kinds of asset classes.
Yeah.
We focus on pharmaceutical. In pharmaceutical, I mean solid dose equipment, sterile, API, biotech equipment, and then we also have chemical equipment, and a lot of that's crossover with the pharmaceutical APIs, activated pharmaceutical ingredients, and then plastics. But auctioneers will come to us and we can help them with valuation. So if they're looking at a deal and a client comes to them and says, we want to auction off this site of equipment, we can come in and help them value it and understand what that machinery is worth. Okay. On the marketing side, we have 80,000 customers all looking for this machinery, and we can help them find customers and introduce them to the auction house, understand that this equipment will be up for auction at a certain day, and help them bring customers to the table, so to speak. Also, if certain things don't sell or don't meet minimum guarantees that an auctioneer may have, we can store the equipment for them. So if a facility is shutting down, it needs to be moved, they could send it to us. We have a large storage facility, 1.4 million square feet under roof, and we can do that and help them. We also understand how to move and care for pharmaceutical machinery, like tablet presses, for instance. Tablet presses and capsule fillers are regulated by the DEA. Every machine that's sold needs to be traced. Where does it go to? How is it stored? Okay. And we can help the auctioneer understand those regulations and make sure all those steps are needed so they remain compliant. So there's a lot of things, and the other thing I can do is I can hit one button through our marketing department and let many people, targeted people, understand that machinery will be up for auction on a certain date. And I think that's probably our biggest support tool for the auction companies.
Well, that's a big tool, because being in marketing, the whole thing is about being targeted. You don't want to be sending everybody out there about an HPLC machine or, whatever tablet press you might have, to everyone out there. You really want to reach those people that are only in the market for that type of piece of equipment. And sometimes it even comes down to, yes, a tablet press, but of this manufacturer.
Right.
There's certain people who only want certain manufacturers in their facility. And if you can keep a list of that, that's when the promotions are very targeted and they'll be so responsive. And I'm sure you find buyers all the time then.
It's kind of push marketing. So
Yeah.
if we have a customer that specifically know they need a FETI 1200 tablet press, and we have it in our system, in our database, that customer is looking for that, and then the auction comes up, you better believe they get an email. There's a FETI 1200 tablet press available in this auction. So it's something that we can help the auction companies and really make sure, instead of 50 people looking at their auction, there's 300 people there who all have need for that specific machine.
Right. Yeah, that's it. We don't want big numbers. We want the quality. We want the people that are most interested in that specific asset that is up for sale.
Right. Exactly.
Well, then it sounds like Federal does do all that background research work for both, an individual who might want to purchase a piece of used equipment, but also for the auction companies.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the auction companies have entree to a lot of deals, maybe a bankruptcy, maybe a turnaround management professional, maybe, a long-standing corporate relationship,
Yeah.
where they're given these projects and they're not sure about how to properly market the asset class, and we can help them with target marketing and, most importantly, valuation, and understand whether a machine is I call it a white elephant. Will that machine ever be able to be used again? Because you got to understand, in pharmaceutical, there's a lot of custom stuff, especially in packaging. There could be a custom delivery mechanism, or if you've seen like wallets where it's like a blister card but it's a wallet, what's the chances of finding another manufacturer that's going to want that exact machine? And and there's a lot of delivery mechanisms that are specific to that drug, and are we going to be able to find other customers? And we help the auctioneer know whether there's going to be a market for a certain machine.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I think then my last question will be for you, since it sounds like federal is already doing so many amazing things. What can we expect to see from federal in the future?
That's a great question. So we're really focused on high-end pharmaceutical equipment. We're trying to narrow down what we do. We're trying to really specifically focus on the highest level of equipment. We're heavily investing in biotech equipment.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to understand the biotech world as we see that as the future. We have a new spare parts business, which is
Oh,
called Farm Parts. Which was just launched. It's an e-commerce business for people buying spare parts. So 80 years of accumulating all these facilities and machinery have just gotten thousands of SKUs of spare parts. So now we're offering spare parts on an platform. Someone could sign on, click on, pay with a credit card, and have a part to their facility in a day or two. So
and
that's that.
that has to be so advantageous right now, as we talked about with all these supply chain issues. Instead of companies saying, "Oh, let's just go get new," when we can't get new for a couple of months, hey, let's get these spare parts and get this piece of equipment working a little bit faster or more efficiently.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're super busy. We've got a lot of projects. We're supporting a lot of auctions, upcoming auctions. We have really high-end equipment. We have a global contract, which we just actually re-signed with Pfizer. So we are helping Pfizer with asset recovery at all their sites on process and packaging equipment. So that's a big thing. We also have BASF as a corporate client. So we help them, with selling machinery from site to site, transferring equipment. So that's another part of our services that we offer as investment recovery services for large pharmaceutical companies and chemical companies. So those are all the things we're working on. We're growing. We're adding people. We're going to be hitting all the trade shows, and we'll be at Interfex and DCAT and CPHI North America, CPHI Europe, AAPS. We just all the trade shows coming up here in the season, and we're looking forward to seeing our customers in the near future.
Okay, then my last question is, how many hours a night do you sleep? It sounds like you're so busy. It's like,
It's I had a good mentor in Michael Cadis, who's our CEO. I think the man sleeps 15 minutes a day.
oh my
He
God.
ran so many companies and he had so many things going on. So I think he calls me in the middle of the night, wakes me up, and says, "I got to talk to you about a deal." So the man does not sleep. But yeah, so it's been really good. We've got an amazing team. We've got great people, great support mechanism. Marketing is so important to us, and I always tell people we're a marketing company that happens to sell used machinery. So, and great customers that come to us who know what they want. So they come and they know the machines they need and want, and that's a big. Generally, our customers know a hell of a lot more about the machinery than we do. So it's really good. And support of the original equipment manufacturers and partnerships that we've had over the years.
Yeah.
That's really something that I think we've done that's beyond our competitors.
Yeah, I think
So
it brings us all, this conversation brought us all full circle. It's all about those relationships that instill trust, that bring people back to federal equipment over and over. And it sounds
100%.
like it'll continue now with this new offering, with the spare parts and with the training, that value added training, which I think is wonderful. Because that's what's needed now. You've got to offer people extra value, keep them the education that they need so that they can use those pieces of equipment. Because in the end, that is better for you. If they know how to use the piece of equipment better, it'll work out better. And then they'll like that equipment. And then if they need another piece, they'll come back to federal.
100%.
And so
Yeah.
it's all full circle. Well, I thank you very much for your time today, and I wish Federal Equipment Company success throughout 2023.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
You're welcome.
And I'll see you hopefully at Interfex.
Yep, definitely.
Okay,
See you
good.
later.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss our next episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to send me an email to dpeterson@worldinnovators.com. Till next time, have a great day.